we're in this weird time of year where it feels like we've just finished one celebration and we're getting ready for another. It doesn't seem very long ago since we celebrated Halloween and all the other festivities around that. And we literally just celebrated Thanksgiving. Now we're in the season of Advent, and Christmas will be coming soon. And a film that encapsulates this feeling is The Nightmare Before Christmas. There we see Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, and Halloween Town leading their celebration of Halloween. But Jack finds himself, after the celebration is done, after the mayor of the town is hounding him about the celebration for next year, getting ready for it right away, Jack finds himself a little despondent, looking for something different and something new. And in these feelings, he finds himself traveling to a grove where he discovers all these trees around with these doors on them. And each tree leads to a different town. Learns he's just one of many holiday towns to celebrate. And each tree has a little symbol on it. There's the pumpkin for Halloween. There's a little turkey for Thanksgiving. There's an egg for Easter. And there's a little tree on one that's decorated with different ornaments. This is the one that Jack decides to go through, where he witnesses Christmas. He loves what he sees, and he decides he wants to celebrate Christmas as well. The problem is that Jack doesn't understand what's going on with Christmas. Jack decides to kidnap Santa Claus, whose name he can't even get right, Santa Claus. And he decides to kidnap him, give him a break, and take his place, and give all the toys to good boys and girls throughout the world. The problem there is that Jack creates scary toys, things that cause all the children he goes to scream. And it gets so bad that the Air Force comes after him, trying to shoot him down in his sled. It takes Jack's friends rescuing Santa Claus, bringing him back, to make things all better in this celebration. The thing is that Jack didn't understand what Christmas is about. And looking at the secular focus that the filmmakers had, I really doubt they did either. They certainly didn't understand Easter and having an Easter egg instead of the principal symbol of the holiday, cross. The problem for us is we often struggle to understand what Christmas is too. We see that in the very name that we give it. Christmas, short for Christ Mass. But every Mass, every Eucharist that we celebrate, it's about Jesus, not just the one for the day of his birth. Now, if you look in our prayer book, you'll find two names used at various points for this day. The day of the Nativity, with the season following after. We might even call it the day of the Incarnation, because this day is about Jesus' birth in this world. Now, I think part of our problem in sometimes not understanding what Christmas is about We often think of this season as a preparation for Christmas, for the season of the Nativity. But this season is actually much older. Advent predates our celebration of the Nativity by quite a bit. It comes from those days before people thought that there was any merit to celebrating a birthday. No, what Advent was originally about was remembering, getting ready for our Lord's second coming into this world. It's what we see in our readings today. We see us talking about Jesus' coming back into this world. Now, if we could look at a theme for today, a theme in our readings, it would be keep watch, O sleepers. Or, as Jesus himself puts it, be alert. Be alert. Be ready. Be ready for what is to come. Be ready for our Lord's return into this world. And in our call to be ready, our lessons point us to yet another theme today. And this is the theme of being righteous. We see this first in the book of the prophet Jeremiah. And our reading in Jeremiah approaches the end of the book. Approaches the end of the kingdom, the southern kingdom of Israel, even existing. Because Jeremiah is writing in a time where the Israelites have been so unrighteous that the Babylonians are at their gates, ready to take them over and to exile the Israelites from the land that God has promised them of old. And this only occurs because of their unrighteousness, because God is no longer there to protect them from themselves. And yet, in these circumstances, Jeremiah points us to hope. The hope that one day the Israelites will return. And in that day, they will be renamed. The land or city will be renamed. The Lord is our righteousness. And it's important that it's those words. The Lord is our righteousness. Because as the Israelites have shown, we cannot be righteous on our own. We need the Lord in order to make that happen. And the hope for righteousness continues throughout our readings. This is the hope that David gives us in our psalm this morning. It's the hope that Paul has for the Thessalonians. This is Paul's hope that they will move to righteousness, as Paul is eager to join them again. Even as Paul, as we see later in Thessalonians, in 1 Thessalonians, Timothy, his protege, has come back with good news of what the Thessalonians are doing. It's Paul's hope that they will continue to be spurred to righteousness as they prepare, as we hear, for God's own return in the second coming in this world. Righteousness is what Jesus is calling his disciples to in the gospel. And this is what Jesus really means by being ready, by being watchful, by being alert. This is where our two themes for our readings intersect. Being alert, being ready, means living into righteousness, means living righteously. Now, this path of righteousness isn't an easy one. David in the Psalms reminds us of this. David reminds us that in our righteousness we will face persecutions, just as he faced persecution from his predecessor as king, from King Saul. David also asks in the Psalm that the Lord forget the sins of his youth. A reminder to each and every one of us that we cannot escape our sinful nature. That we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. Being righteous is hard because it takes us away from the ways of this world, the ways that we are used to. And that's why in the gospel, Jesus is exhorting us to get away from the paths of the world. Jesus is calling us to shift from those patterns, those ways of living that we have known before. And this is because those ways, the ways of dispiation and drunkenness, as Jesus refers to it in the gospel, aren't enough for us. They can't fill that hole that we find in our lives. That hole in our lives is Jesus-shaped. And so Jesus is the only one that can fill that hole, that can make us whole. Now, Advent is a time of preparation. But it's not simply a time to prepare for the season of the Nativity. It's not even just a time for preparing for Jesus' return. We don't know when Jesus is coming back. We don't know when the second coming will be. We don't even know for our own lives when they will end. We have a lot of uncertainty about our own end, about the end of the whole world. When's it going to come? And this is why we're called to be ready, because we don't know when the time or place will be. But instead, Jesus is trying to ask us, is do we want to live a life where we try and fail to fill that Jesus-shaped hole in our lives with other things that don't quite fit? Or instead, do we want to live a life that is actually worth living? We can only do that, live a worthwhile life, if we are taking the time to let God in. That's what it means to be righteous. To let God in. Because we cannot be righteous on our own. So take this time Take this time to use Advent for what it was really meant to be used for. Take this time to be alert, to be awake, to listen, to prepare. Take this time to get ready, to allow God in. Because that is the only way that we can fill that Jesus-shaped hole in ourselves. Letting God